We have with us Hilla. It's Talwar, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, Talwar, who grew up actually in Baba's household with Baba as her big daddy, because her father and mother opted to surrender the whole family to Baba's care, and Baba took them on, and as he said to Hilla, although I don't want to preempt your talk, I will see to your every tiniest detail. I will look to and take care of.
Tiniest needs.
Tiniest needs. Okay, good. So, without further ado, Hilla Talwar. And you may sit. You don't need to stand.
I'm going to sing. I've been asked to sing.
Good.
So, well, I hope I don't falter, because now I'm 86 years old
Holy smoke.
and my voice is not that great anymore.
Wow.
But I'll give it a go.
Good.
Okay. Jai Baba. You're my bread when I'm hungry. You're my shelter from troubled winds. You're my anchor in life's ocean. But most of all, you're my best friend. You gave life to me, Baba. You nurtured me from a seedling to a tree. Throughout my life, you're my inspiration, and for me, a reason to go on. You're my bread when I'm hungry. You're my shelter from troubled winds. You're my anchor in life's ocean. But most of all, you're my best friend. You're always there to guard and guide me. You're always strong when I'm tired and weak. I could search the whole world over. You'd still be everything that I need. You're my bread when I'm hungry. You're my shelter from troubled winds. You're my anchor in life's ocean. But most of all, you're my best friend. Most of all, you're my best friend. Avatar? I'm glad it went beautifully.
Wonderful. Really wonderful.
I was asked to give a talk about the musts that lived in Mehrabad, in Lower Mehrabad, because you see, during the new life, when Baba went into the new life, we used to live in a little cottage. At first we lived on Mehrabad Hill with the ladies for a few years, and then Baba wanted us to live in a cottage which was the family quarters in Lower Mehrabad. It's because my mother used to pine to see my father. And Baba knew, of course, she wouldn't tell him that, but he was all-knowing, and he knew that she was pining for him. And so, you know, his infinite sweetness and thoughtfulness, he told my mother, there's a little cottage near Lower Mehrabad, near the Mandli, but a little while away, which was the dispensary. Now it had turned into a dispensary. So he said, you can live there with your children and you can come and visit us on the hill whenever you wanted in the evenings. And that Savak, my father, would come and stay with her there. First he would visit her, and then later on, when Baba went into the new life, he said, Savak will be with you. And of course my father was not happy about it, because he never wanted to leave Baba's side at all. He didn't want wife, children, nothing at all, you know. We were a hindrance to the poor man. Anyway, I mean, I bow down to the devotion he had for Baba, literally, you know. He was fantastic. So anyway, so we stayed in the little cottage. And you know, there were times when Baba would come and visit us there, and he would allow my mother to comb his hair. Even that, you know, it was so intimate and so beautiful, because only Mera used to comb his hair whenever he was on Upper Meramati. But he gave a chance for my mother to do that as well, which was fantastic. And she so lovingly used to brush his hair and plait it, you know, and say, oh, Baba, I can't do it like Mera does it, you know, she would tell him. He said, no, it's okay, it's fine, you know, it's fine. And we were allowed to go and visit him on the hill as children. And you see, Pendu Kaka was one of my favorite Baba Mandli. There were 4 of them whom I was very close to, because they used to take us to the school as well by train. It was a 24-hour journey by train to Hyderabad from Ahmednagar. So either Kaka Bharya or Pendu Kaka, or sometimes, occasionally my dad used to take us to the school, drop us and bring us back. So we became very close to Pendu Kaka. He was such fun to be with. You know, he loved children, and he used to tell us jokes and make us laugh and things like that. And anyway, when we lived in the cottage, Pendu and Padri Kaka and Sarosh was the uncrowned king of Ahmednagar. Because he was Khan Sahib Sarosh, that was the title given to him, and a great devotee of Baba. Baba used to love him very much, and he adored Baba. And during the new life, what Baba told my mother, that pack up everything from here and move into Lower Mandli Hall, which was where all the Mandli used to stay previously. But because they were all going with him, and some of them had to move out of there and go to Merazad, so what he did was, he asked us to move into the Mandli Hall, my father, mother and 3 children, all 3 of us, and during the new life that was. And my father, he didn't accompany Baba because he was not very strong at that time. And Baba only took a very few chosen, very strong disciples to come with him in that, even the ladies. And anyway, we used to go and visit Baba on the hill very often in the evenings, practically every day. And Pendu's father, whose name was Masaji, that Masaji is a very close relative, you know, we used to say. He was Pendu's father. Now he was another jovial man, and he would be sitting near the railway lines in a chair and wouldn't allow anybody to go up. He was the watchman. So when we used to come, he used to say, where's the ticket? You are not allowed to go up. He would tease us, where's the ticket? And we said, what ticket? Well, we have to have a ticket. You can't go up there otherwise, you know, and tease us. And he was such a darling man. He died early afterwards. And anyway, we used to go to Baba and visit all the ladies. They were all my aunties, you know, so many of them in the ashram. I had so much love from everybody. because I was the youngest girl in the ashram. So they always treated me like a little baby, you know, and everybody would hug me and kiss me, and I was brought up with a lot of love. And same thing even with the male Manli. They were all my uncles, and you know, and everybody loved me. And I've had so much love in my life, beginning with him. He also had given me a lot of love, I told you the story, did I, about when I asked my father, why is it that Baba shows me so much more love than he does to my sister? And my father said, well, you know, Hillu, that's because Baba knows that your sister Naju is totally his. But he has to work on you to draw you towards him. Because I was a very childish, playful person, not very spiritual. My sister was born spiritual, devoted. She was another type of a person altogether. I think she was born with joint hands, praying. And I was totally opposite. And I had to learn how to do everything, you know. It was like that. Mind you, I adored Baba. I loved him. He was my father, because he had told my parents that from now, this day on, when they see, my parents surrendered everything and came to Baba to follow him, including the children. So he said, from this day on, they are no longer your children. They are my children, and I will take care of their every need. That's what he had said. And he's done so to this day, I can assure you. So anyway, we moved to this Lower Merawat, and it was lovely. I mean, every evening I'd go out walking with Kale Mama, who was an uncle of another disciple of Baba called Murli. Kale Mama was also Baba's disciple. And I think he was an engineer in his life or something. Interesting man. And every evening I used to go for a walk with him on the railway lines, up and down, you know. And now during the day, I was very fascinated by Muhammad the Mast and Babchi, that was another Mast, who used to stay in the Rauri cabin of Baba's. He used to live there, and Muhammad lived in the next building. I think that used to be the old Manli Hall before they built the other Manli Hall. And Muhammad was there. So for me, that was my entertainment, to go and sit with Muhammad. So I used to go to Muhammad every morning. I had my breakfast, and Muhammad lived in a library room there. There was a library which I think all the foreign disciples used to send storybooks to Baba, because Baba would make money read the stories to him. And there were detective stories and romance, and there were classics, everything. And it was in the hall where Muhammad was staying. Now Muhammad was a very fiery must. And you all know what a must is, isn't it? A must means he was God intoxicated. All he saw was only God. Even if you were standing there, probably you would think that is God. It was like that with him, you know. But there were certain people, they wouldn't connect to these musts. So he would get very angry if someone stood by his door and looked at him. And he would throw them out, shout and throw them out. Get out. What are you staring at? Get out, that sort of thing. I had the same habit. I would go and I'd look at him. And he would, it's a Lillu Bai. He used to call me Lillu Bai. So, because I was known as Hillu in the ashram, Hillu, as a pet name. His name was Hilla, but they called me Hillu. So, Lillu Bai, he used to say. So, Lillu Bai, then, yeah, he would call me. Then so sweet, he had a kafni. He used to wear a long robe, a white robe. And he had a little stool, so he would take his kafni and then start wiping the stool with his kafni and then say, Basa, basa, basa. So he invite me to sit because he was so fiery. I used to hesitate, But then I got used to it. Every day when I came, he would do the same thing. Wipe his stool with his cuffney and make me sit down. And then he was busy digging in the ground. That was something he used to always do. He'd be walking about with his back bent and digging. But he was doing some spiritual work which we are not aware of course. And every now and then, and I used to take a book from the library, sit on the stool and read. I loved. By the end of that new life, I'd nearly finished the whole library because I used to read a book a day. I loved reading. So that was all we could do. We didn't have telephones and, mobiles and all in those days, or music or gramophone, nothing. So this was my pastime, to read. And every now and then he would do this and then he would look at me. And when he looked at me, his eyes, they were like burning coals. Literally burning coals. And I would just look away. I'd look at him, but I'd look away thinking, you could see right through your soul, it was like that. And literally, I loved him, but I was scared as well at the same time. Because most unusual eyes I have ever seen was Muhammad's eyes. Now, the other must was just in the Rowry cabin on the right-hand side of Muhammad's place was Babji. Now, he was like a Maharaja. Very quiet, very beautiful, very pleasing, and you would be attracted to him and not be afraid, because he was very gentle and very kind, and he wouldn't talk, but just the appearance was so majestic. That's the word. He was a majestic must. Now we would go in. Whenever he saw me passing by, he would do like this. So I would go in, and my sister and I both, we would sit down and look at him, and no conversation, just to be in the presence of such spiritual men. They were on the fifth plane. So my father used to be very happy that I would sit next to them every day, because he said some spirituality will get into this girl if she's in the company of these fifth plane monks. He was very happy. Mom said, all day she does is just take a book and she's with Tukia. We used to, in those days, Muhammad was called Tukia, because they didn't know whether he was Hindu or Muslim. So some called him Muhammad and some called him Tukia. Tukia is a Hindu name and Muhammad is a Muslim name, you see. So anyway, we used to call him Tukia because all the other people called him Tukia in those days. And Padri Kaka, my mother had to share the kitchen with Padri Kaka in those days. And Padri Kaka was living next to us, the Mandli Hall, and there was a little room which was his always. And I loved him. He was a dear, dear man as well. Anyway, so we went to, and we had Donkin living in the offices that were nearby the Lower Mandli Hall, There was an office which Jal used to use later on. Now they moved from there. But that used to be Donkin's home. And poor Donkin, he had to write the Wayfarers during the new life. Baba had asked him to write the Wayfarers. So he was there. And my mother, and he had told my mother that whenever Donkin comes, you have to look after his meals and see to his comfort and all that. That was duty which my mother had to do. Now, Donkin, being Englishman, very particular about timings, etc. If we were 5 minutes late in giving him his tea or whatever, he would be very cross. One day he asked Mum to give him a cup of tea, and it was so. My sister and I, we took the tea and we went to his room, and it was 5 minutes late. He looked at his watch, took the mug and threw it.
No.
because it was 5 minutes late, and we got scared and we ran. We ran to Mum and said, Mum, he's thrown the mug of tea because he looked at his watch. I think you were late, Mum, My mum was very calm. She said, it's okay. After a little while, he appeared in our home because we had a dining table in that Mandi hall as well, and he used to come and eat there. And then he looked at us and he just gave a big laughter, he laughed out loud and then he embraced both of us because we had grown so frightened. He said, don't mind me, it's just one of those things, he said, and he hugged me and he hugged my mother as well. I know, Nargis, you're trying your best, whatever it is, but he was very frustrated because he always wanted to be with Baba. And instead of that, he had to write this book. And, Donkin was a lovely, lovely man, but very frustrated with life, and that's the only way he showed it. He just threw things, he kicked the door. You could hear lots of banging going on in his room. And it was because he's kicking the cupboards, the tables, the chairs, things like that, I think a couple of times things flew out from his room as well, because that's how he could cope, I suppose, and then he probably, so one of the servants would then take it back again there into the room. But a very lovely man. I used to sit with him every evening when he had his dinner, and we used to have nice, long conversations. I used to enjoy him talking about England and, things like that. I remember once when I told Donkin, I said, Vilu was Sarosh's wife. And she had a lovely house in Ahmednagar where most of the foreign disciples would come and stay. And I had been to her house, and for me, a little child, grown up in the ashram, which was very simple. All we had was a bed, a table and a chair. And going to Vilu's house and seeing that lovely home, I said, Don Kid, we used to call him Don. I said, Don, Vilu's house is so beautiful. So he looked at me and he said, matchboxes. So I said, what do you mean matchboxes? Well, the furniture I'm talking about is all matchboxes. Now, I couldn't understand what that meant till I came to England and I saw the stately homes and now realize what matchboxes are like, Because he was a very wealthy man. He came from a very wealthy family, lived near Buckingham Palace. His family lived around there. So you can imagine the antique furniture that must have been in his home. And me, I couldn't grasp it. Matchboxes. I kept saying, why did he say matchboxes? I was thinking, now I do realize what he meant. Because we all have matchboxes compared to the real antique furniture he was used to. And he was very sweet. He'd take me in his car if I wanted to go shopping to Ahmednagar and bring me back and things like that. Anyway, what happened was, my father, who had renounced the world, didn't want to do any banking, which he was a banker, but during the new life, Baba had given him an order that he had to do all the banking for Sarosh. All the accounts, and Sarosh had cinemas and he had motor works, which was a very successful business. And he told my father, Sarosh will give you a car with petrol. Every day you have to drive there and back. We hardly saw Dad, because by the time he came home, we'd be asleep. He came home about 8:30 in the night. And in the ashram, we were used to sleeping early and getting up early. And by the time we got up, he had gone. He had very long hours, and he was so sort of thorough in his work, even if a penny is less, he will count again, why is that penny less, that sort of a person. And Sarosh was delighted with my father, he absolutely loved the way my father worked. And I remember there was a letter, I think I've forgotten to bring it, which Baba wrote to him when he was there. And he says, Savak, have I embraced you today? He wrote. And if not, that's okay, he says. And that I'm very happy that you are doing good work for Sarosh, and my love to you, he said like that. And take this letter as if it's my embrace, to the words to that effect he had written, Baba. So Dad was very happy that, his nazar is still on me, though he's far away, there is this nazar on me. And anyway, so that was the life my father had in those days. In the new life, that he had to do again accounts, which he escaped from all that time. So my sister and I would go and visit Mohammed. My sister wouldn't stay there, she would just come and say hello to Kia and bow down, and then she would depart because she was a very studious type of person. She would go into her room and she would be reading. She too would borrow the library books and read, plus other Baba books she used to read. So I would sit there with Tukia. Now what happened one day, my sister and I were passing to go to Tukia's place, and Babji called us both, like this he did. So both of us went in, and he pointed, he never spoke, pointed at his foot. And we looked at his foot, oh my God, there was a very deep ulcer, and it was bleeding, and there was pus all around it. It was horrific, I still remember that sight. And Naju said, oh my God, and we both had nursing qualifications. So Naju quickly ran there and took a bandage, and my mother always kept all first aid kit, bandage and disinfectant. And both of us sat down and we cleaned all that pus which had formed there and cleaned his wound, and we put a new gauze and tied it up, bandaged it up. But we said that he'll lose his leg. We thought he would lose because they were very deep ulcer. And both Naju and I said, look, Naju said, let's go and call Donkin. Let Donkin have a look because he's a doctor, he'll know what to do. We are just, we can only just clean it and dress it. But it needs more than that, more attention. Otherwise, he might have to chop his leg off. So we ran to Donkin and we said, Don, please, can you come and have a look at Babji's foot? Because it's horrendous, he's got such a deep ulcer and full of pus. We've cleaned it and we've dressed it. And he called us, actually, it must be hurting, he's not saying a word, but it must be very painful. So Don says, okay, I'm coming with you. So he came with us. So Naju started to remove the bandage. We removed the bandage, and then we took out the dressing, and you know what? There was nothing. Normal leg, totally normal. And we looked at each other and we felt such fools. Because, calling Don, I thought, my God, Donkin is again going to go into a rage that we've disturbed him. But Don knew because, he wrote the Wayfarers and he knew about musts. He said, oh, that's okay. Don't worry. Naju, Hillu, don't worry. It's okay. And he walked away. He knew that, these musts have a fifth plane, he could do anything, Why did he do that? Then my father explained. Do you know why he did that? Because he wanted you to do some service to him. And that way you get spiritual benefit. So he says, you have no idea what spiritual benefit he's given you by doing that. I said, yes, but we were so scared. Because I thought Don would go into a rage that we pulled him out of his cabin while he's writing and saying that his leg is so bad. But it was so bad. I've never seen an ulcer like that in my life. But this is how it was, They were God-intoxicated souls, and they could They could pretend to be dead and come to life or anything like that, you know. He was, and then he gives us a lovely smile afterwards. aren't we? And you know, I had a very close bond with Muhammad, very, very close bond, because literally I knew he loved me and I loved him because he was so sweet, so good to me. And there was, we had a servant called Tani who used to look after him as well as our work. She used to do our work as well, help my mother in the kitchen.